Welcome back, folks, to WrestleRant, where I give my in-depth analysis of all the pay-per-views that I watched on the WWE Network. Today I'll be talking about the 2002 installment of Insurrextion, only on the WWE Network. Kicking off the show for the Intercontinental Championship was Eddie Guerrero defending against Rob Van Dam. Now, these two had a feud going on around this point in the year, right after WrestleMania 18. I did go back and watch Judgment Day, which was right after this pay-per-view. I think that was the first pay-per-view underneath the WWE banner. I think this was the last one under the WWF banner. But that being said, I remember watching that pay-per-view back in May of this year. If you want to go back and check it out, cheap plug. But I do remember them having a match at that Judgment Day pay-per-view. This was equally as good, if not better. I thought this was a very good matchup. The finish, it was a disqualification finish. What else can you really do? I didn't think it was the best way to kick off the night. But, it was logical in continuing the feud to put heat on Eddie Guerrero for getting himself DQ'd. It made sense from that point of, from that perspective. But kicking off the show with an IC title match is never a bad thing. I thought this was a very, very good matchup for the 11 minutes they got. I thought they definitely made the most of it. So, very enjoyable contest to kick off the show. Kept the feud alive, kept the belt in Eddie. Not much more you can ask for. Up next, we had the women's match of the night. We had Trish Stratus and Jackie taking on Molly Holly and Jazz. Very solid women's match. I thought this was one of the better matches around this point in time. Especially, in comparison to the 2000 installment where we had the women's arm wrestling match. And, of course, that was during the Attitude Era. This wasn't. And, maybe it's just me. I enjoyed the women's division more during this period in time from '02 and even to now, I guess, as opposed to, the stuff they did during the Attitude Era. It was entertaining and all, but from a wrestling standpoint, it was shitty. The wrestling back then was bad for the most part. I won't, account everything. But still, though, I thought this was a very good matchup with the team of Trish Stratus and Jackie going over. Very good wrestling match. I enjoyed it for what it was. Baby faces go over. Not much more you can ask for. Enjoyed it. So up next, we had X-Pac versus Bradshaw. Now, like I said before in my previous reviews of Insurrextion, Bradshaw was it felt like he was on every single show. And I won't go into what I was saying in the previous videos, but I just never knew why Bradshaw was by himself, still doing the APA gimmick and the theme and the look and everything. And he still had that APA feel about him, even though Farouk was nowhere to be found. But this was a good match for what it was. Probably went on a little longer than it should have. It was the X-Pac of all people versus Bradshaw. They had a feud going into it. And, it wasn't really anything all that good, but they had something going into it. At least there was a storyline there. It just wasn't anything all that great. It wasn't a bad match. It just went on a lot longer than it probably should have. It got 9 minutes. I would have rather they gave more time to either the women's match or the opener or something like that. But X-Pac went over, and that was that. So up next we had Booker T versus Stevie Richards for the Hardcore Championship. Enjoyable matchup. I always enjoyed the 24/7 rule of the Hardcore Championship. Maybe if I was a wrestling fan at that time and I grew up around the 24/7 rule, maybe I would have gotten sick of it after a while, but going back and watching clips and stuff like that on the DVDs and whatever else, I always thought it was entertaining. I love the Crash Holly segments, and Crash Holly did come in here during the course of the match. Of Crash Holly got involved, pinned Booker T to win the Hardcore Championship. Booker pinned Crash to win back the Hardcore Championship. Stevie Richards came down and pinned Booker to win the Hardcore Championship. So it was Stevie Richards that ultimately left with the Hardcore title. So a lot of craziness, a lot of, all this crazy booking going on here. But, for what it was, though, I thought it was a very enjoyable matchup. Like I said before, I always enjoy the 24/7 rule. Hardcore matches aren't really my thing. I guess they're better in small doses. And, stuff like this I always thought was pretty fun. So, the overbooking and, stuff like that I always thought was crazy. The on-the-cuff moments like this, on the spur of the moment, I thought it was great. So, yeah, Stevie Richards leaves as the Hardcore Champion, even though he lost to Booker T originally. But up next, we had a tag team match with the Hardy Boys taking on Brock Lesnar and Shawn Stasiak with Paul Heyman in their corner. Now, I remember, this is right after Brock Lesnar debuted. This was in June, I think, or May of 2002, about a month after Brock Lesnar debuted. I think maybe a month and a half, I'm not sure, after Brock Lesnar debuted in WWE. And he had a feud going on with the Hardy Boys. And then this would ultimately lead to a tag team match with the Hardys versus Lesnar and Heyman. I think at the Judgment Day pay-per-view, if I'm not mistaken, because I watched that show, but I watched it so long ago I can't remember. But, this was a good matchup. It didn't go as long as it probably could have. And the Hardy Boys picked up the victory, but they pinned Shawn, so technically Lesnar didn't lose. But Lesnar destroyed them all afterwards anyway, including Shawn. So, he got the end of the... the Hardy Boys had to pick up a win at some point. We'll just put it that way, because Brock Lesnar could have destroyed these two on his own, and he did eventually. But The Hardy Boys had to pick up a win to avoid looking like complete enhancement talent and losers, and they picked up a win here, even though it was over a fellow loser in Shawn Stasiak. So the match itself was fun for what it was. Brock Lesnar getting the better of all three of the individuals after the contest by laying them all out with F5s, which was entertaining as all hell. But I don't know who I was talking to, but I really didn't know much about Shawn Stasiak. I know he was a WCW guy for a while, but I really know nothing about the guy when he came over to WWE. And I think I posed that question on Twitter when I was watching the show a while ago, and people responded back saying, oh, he was nothing special. I can imagine, otherwise I would have known more about him, but he must not have been. I really just don't know much about him, so I'm not really surprised that he was the one to team with Lesnar here and ultimately take the pinfall loss for his team. But that was that. Up next for the European Championship, Spike Dudley defending against William Regal. Now, I thought William Regal would come out victorious here, given the fact this was his home country of England. He would lose here. They love Spike Dudley, so it wasn't like they were against him. And William Regal did a good job of, building up heat against him and making the crowd turn against him, so that was good. But I don't know if this was a legit injury or not. Spike Dudley got injured at one point in the matchup. Rolled up William Regal very quickly for the win, then William Regal attacked him afterwards. So I don't know if that was a legit injury or not. Kind of felt like it to me, and if it was not a legitimate injury, then they did a great job of selling it, especially Spike Dudley. But the matchup was what it was. It was a pretty basic bout. Spike Dudley coming out victorious, still the European champion. I thought William Regal should have taken the title here, but that was just me. But yeah, fine matchup for what it was. Didn't know if he was legit injured or not. Didn't follow that up. But it was basically what it was. So up next it was a singles match between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Big Show. This was right after Big Show joined the NWO. I think on the previous episode of Raw, right before this pay-per-view. So this is a pretty impromptu contest. And this is around the time that Steve Austin was feuding with the NWO and right before he left the company in June. So they had a pretty good matchup. I mean, it went 16 minutes. Don't always expect most from the Big Show matches, but there was some NWO interference. Ric Flair, who was the special guest referee, who got involved a few times, so a lot of crazy overbooking here, but I thought it was entertaining. Stone Cold ultimately went over. It was 2 Stone Cold Stunners on the Big Show, picking up the victory. And I mean, it just felt like he was treading water, and technically he was in the second biggest match of the night next to the main event between Triple H and Undertaker. But I mean, it didn't feel like it was a blockbuster thing with Stone Cold feuding with the NWO. It just kind of felt like he was treading water. And so I don't really blame him for leaving, and I don't really want to get into that a short while later. But still, though, for this matchup, I thought it was entertaining, especially the 2 Stone Cold Stunners. Stone Cold battling up against all odds and coming up victorious against the world's largest athlete, the Big Show. So up next with the main event, Triple H versus The Undertaker. No championship up for grabs. Now, this was shortly after Hulk Hogan won the championship from Triple H at the Backlash pay-per-view. Undertaker was I think he was healed at this point in time, and Triple H was still babyface. And this was not a number 1 contenders match or anything like that. It was just kind of a random matchup between the two, and I think it might have been a rematch from WrestleMania 17 a year prior. So there was that element to it. But, it was a pretty good matchup. The Triple H and Undertaker back in around this point in time, they didn't have the best matches. I personally enjoyed their matches from more recently, from 2011 and 2012 more. Maybe that's just me, but it was a solid matchup, 10 times better than their King of the Ring matchup that they had at the King of the Ring pay-per-view a couple of months later. That was a shitty-ass match, but I didn't think this was a great match. It was better than that, but not by much. Went about 15 minutes. Triple H went over. Just a lot of craziness. And there were some cool spots, but the ring broke at one point. Just a lot of weird shit going down. Triple H picked up the victory, and that would set up him as the number 1 contender. Actually, no, it wouldn't, because I think Undertaker faced Hulk Hogan in the next pay-per-view anyway for that championship. So I don't fucking know what was going on in this period of time. The title has changed in hands so many times, and I love the year of 2002 in wrestling, especially for WWE, for many of reasons. But still, though, I mean, there was just so much going on at the time with the title changing hands, like every single pay-per-view. The title was not on the line here with Hulk Hogan competing. He wasn't even on the show. But it was a solid main event, if yet unspectacular. So that closed out the show. But on the whole, though, I thought this was an enjoyable show. More so than the 01 installment. I don't know about that. Like I said before, what I liked more so about the 01, 02, and 03 shows more than the 01 or the 2000 installment was that these pay-per-views had more of a feeling of a storyline driven. They had more meaning behind the matches than most of the matches on the 2000 installment. So it had that aspect on it. But I wouldn't call it a great show. It was what it was. I wouldn't go suggest that you go out of way to see it. There really wasn't, as opposed to the 01 installment, was really no match in the show that you should go out of your way to see. The Hardy Boys, Brock Lesnar stuff was fun, but it wasn't like great. Again, same thing with Triple H and Undertaker. It was good, not one of their better matches, so don't go out of your way to see that. Stone Cold and Big Show, entertaining, again, not great. And everything else, I mean, it was a fine undercard. Like I said before, a lot of storyline-driven stuff, so I appreciated that as opposed to just a random card. Enjoyed the opener with RVD and Eddie, but, you know, in a way, it was all kind of just downhill from there. But, yeah, I'll be talking about the 03 installment for my next video if you want to go back and check that out. Of these three so far, I would say the 01 one was the best, but we'll see when we get to my 03 review which one was the best of them all. So that being said, always appreciate the support, guys. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to check me out on Facebook, Graham Jason Matthews, Twitter at WrestleRant. And like I said before, in my next video, we'll be covering the 03 installment of Insurrextion to finish off my reviews of these pay-per-views before moving into New Year's Revolution to close out the year. So on that note, folks, I'm Graham Jason Matthews, and I'll catch you guys in my next video.